Well, welcome back to Scoreboard, where we talk about what is going on in the world of sports, and we also talk about what is going on behind the world of sports. Now, one of the things that we don't talk about very often, except when we are hearing about their ruling, is the Sports Disputes Tribunal. And many decisions have gone one way. The other parties were not happy. They've gone the other way. The other parties were not happy. We do understand that, not both parties will be happy, but an arbitration has to be done whenever you have this dispute. So we are very honored today to have the chairman of the Sports Disputes Tribunal, John Moore Ohaga. Not very many people know what the M stands for, unless you've been in sports before. So it's John Moore Ohaga. And he himself was a flanker, if I'm not wrong, didn't he?
A fly half.
Fly half, I beg your pardon. You were a fly half.
Standoff.
And you played for the Mean Machine, first of all, and then you moved into club rugby as well.
I played for Mean Machine, I played for Barclays RFC, Kenya Harlequins, and Kenya, Bernard.
And Kenya as well. And that speed is still very memorable in our minds, the speed that you used to have. But welcome. Thank you very much for talking to us.
Yes, I played with Rombo. Yeah, one of the guys I helped to make score many tries.
Right, let's talk about it then. Now you're the chairman of the Sports Dispute Tribunal. Now it's a tribunal. It's supposed to, help to resolve disputes that come into you. What is the scope of the Sports Disputes Tribunal?
Well, Bernard, what you want is the statutory scope. I always say it's very narrow. We determine disputes relating to disciplinary decisions imposed by federations. We determine disputes relating to selections for Kenyan teams. We determine disputes arising from decisions of the Registrar of Sports, appeals from decisions of the Registrar of Sports. And we also determine on a wider scope any sports-related dispute with a proviso, providing the parties agree to come before the tribunal and the tribunal agrees to hear them. So the key word there is any sports-related dispute.
Okay, yeah. But both parties must be agreeable to coming before the tribunal.
In a sense, but having said that, it isn't a question of you come before the tribunal and you say, yes, I'd like to come before the tribunal. Actually, most contractual arrangements in any sports relationship will provide for a dispute resolution mechanism.
Correct.
Under the Sports Act, the second schedule to the Sports Act requires every federation now to have the Sports Disputes Tribunal as the dispute resolution mechanism.
Okay.
So you don't actually agree when you come to the tribunal, you agree in the instrument that establishes your federation, your constitution, or if there's a contract that you entered into, you might have agreed prior to coming to the tribunal. So the more important thing is whether the tribunal agrees to hear you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But even so, and more recently, then people have often felt that the Sports Act and the Sports Disputes Tribunal are not working together, and that they are contra each other. Like the Sports Act might. No, the sports registrar, let me say, the sports registration sometimes makes a decision that is not what the disputes tribunal is making as well. Are you not working in tandem?
No, we don't have to work in tandem.
No, you don't.
That's why we determine appeals from decisions of the sports registrar.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The point is the sports tribunal is an independent decision-making body. The sports registrar is a regulator. The registrar can make her decisions. The sports tribunal then reviews those decisions and determines whether those decisions accord, as far as we're concerned, with A, the statute, and B, the other instruments that establish federations, whether it is the local federation or the international federation, and the other contractual arrangements that federations and other sports people enter into. So we look at it from a much wider angle. Yeah? We look at not just the regulatory aspect, we look at how it impacts the sport. We look at whether it impedes or enhances the sport. So we don't have to consult.
Absolutely.
And be in tandem with each other.
Okay,
yeah.
You don't have to do it in tandem. Have you had any of the cases that were, very difficult to handle? Probably the two parties before you not agreeable, but they have come before you. But which probably forces you to go out of your way to be able to bring them onto the table to discuss, or even to accept some of the decisions that you have made?
Well, that's our fodder. That's what we do every day. But there are times when actually we resort to a process where we don't actually determine the dispute. We bring the two parties together and we say, let's sit together and let's find a way forward. So for instance, at the round about this time last year, with a dispute in golf. Golf had what was called the Kenya Golf Union.
Correct.
And the Kenya Golf Federation.
Correct.
This was very interesting because the Kenya Golf Federation was the registered body that the registrar had registered as controlling golf. But the Kenya Golf Union is the one that de facto controlled golf. Yeah?
Correct, yes.
And so they had a conflict because, when the Sports Act came into being, there was a requirement for a transition from the structure under the Societies Act to the structure under the Sports Act.
Right.
And for some reason, golf took a very interesting path, and they created a federation. But the federation had no affiliation to the international body. Mm-hmm. It is the union
that is
affiliated.
Yes.
So the officials of the federation had the paper certificate and no followers. The union
yes.
had no paper certificate,
yes.
but they had all the clubs behind them.
Mm-hmm.
And now the difficulty here arose from the fact that, as you know, golf holds a tournament, a very high-profile tournament every year. And in the run-up to that, the government had issued a directive saying, unless you are registered under the Sports Act, you will not get funding. So the union was not going to be able to access funding in order to be able to run that tournament. But the federation, on the other hand, could not run the tournament because they had no followers. So that was not going to be resolved by a decision.
No.
But the registrar had resolved, obviously, in favor of the federation because she had to, because that's the entity that she had registered.
Correct.
Now, we then have to look at it and to say, federation, yeah, you have a certificate,
yes.
but how are you going to run the sport? Yeah. So we brought them together, we had a mediation, and we agreed on a mechanism for the way forward to bring them together, hold elections, have a unified body, and then allow them to move forward.
And they were agreeable.
And they were agreeable. I don't think you heard about any dispute.
No, we didn't. We tormented him about it here a couple of times.
There's some happy endings.
Yes, there were some happy endings, yes, and that happened, yes. Great. Absolutely. Let's talk to Bungei.
So I'm sure Ken knows, yes.
Maybe this might be from the athletics world. It seems to have a burning issue here.
Actually, Chairman, thanks for having you. On this show, I'm the one who I always tell these guys that he's the wearer of the shoe who understands where it pinches.
Absolutely.
And therefore, being a sports person, I'm imagining a situation whereby there is a selection of the team, Kenya, especially in the field of athletics.
Yeah.
Sometimes an athlete has been selected, then at a certain point they are being dropped. Remember that, sometimes there is 1, 2, 3 across the line. Then at times, they would say 1, 2, and then we will select another wild card.
Yes.
But this one has always bring a lot of controversies on the athletes themselves, and sometimes the same athletes doesn't know where to go.
No, but the Sports Act actually tells them to come to the tribunal because we determine selection disputes relating to national teams. And I always say with individual sports, it's actually much easier to determine those selection disputes because there's a selection criteria, there's time, you must meet the time, and you must be a certain position, 1, 2, 3. There may be a provision for a wild card, and we completely understand that. And there may be circumstances when the Federation or Athletics Kenya feels that an athlete with particular expertise or experience does need to make up part of the team. Those are things that we understand. But having said that, your direct question is where should the athlete go? The athlete should come to the Sports Disputes Tribunal. Obviously, team selections are more difficult,
Even right now, with the team selection to Budapest, there's going to be 1 or 2 issues.
Yes.
They're already coming up with especially some middle distance sprinters, we know. But I don't know whether there's usually enough time for them to come to you before
And that's the problem, enough time. So you have to come with enough time to spare. But what we do is we look at your timetable, we look at the times when entries for the international meet close, and we expedite the hearing. So even if we have to hear it tomorrow, if you filed it today, we will hear it tomorrow.
What is the interesting case that you probably have arbitrated, say in soccer, for example, because that's the biggest sport by
well, not relating to selection.
Not relating to selection.
Soccer has a myriad of issues that are always before the tribunal. The biggest one, you know, is elections.
Yes, they are usually contentious.
Yeah, they're contentious. And then we're always having disputes related employer contracts. Sorry, football player contracts is another issue. And that for us is a very thorny issue, because the question is, where should this player go? Should the player, if you are a player who is categorized as an international level player, FIFA tells you where to go directly, and you've got immediate recourse. But if you're a national level player, the question is, should you come to the tribunal or should you go to the employment court? Now for us, that's a big problem, because we know that if you go to the employment court, you're going to be there 5-6 years. And yet there are transfer windows which you need to make yourself available to, which means you need to resolve your dispute with your former employer in order to get a clearance certificate, in order to be able to transition to another club. And in order, I think, to have the proper mind frame to be competing for a place in your new team.
Which one takes precedence now in this case? If you made a decision on an employment contract like that, can someone still go and appeal it at the employment court?
This is the thorny issue. This is why I said it's thorny, because the argument, obviously some clubs, when they come before us because they want to delay the determination, will say, no, this is an employment matter. It should go to the employment tribunal. We take the view, it might be an employment matter, but it is a sports-related matter. And the player deserves to have that dispute resolved in the fastest possible manner. In the employment court, you'll be there 4 or 5 years.
Correct. You know? Ken seems to be having something burning here.
I want us to tackle, I would want us to tackle the bans that Kenya faces from time to time for this or for the other. And in this regard, we had football, and football was sorted out. Now, I think the most thorny issue we have now is swimming.
Absolutely.
There was supposed to be some elections, I think, a month ago.
What, for swimming?
For swimming, yes. Supposed to be some elections which didn't take place. Somebody went to court and blocked. What's the position, and why can't they?
The report is that there's injunctions and counter-injunctions.
And counter-injunctions.
And I think we had a similar situation in football before, when we had injunctions and counter. We were basically chasing our tails.
And why can't we get these people to sit on the table? Because
this is, Ken, Bernard, this is the problem when sport goes to a mainstream court.
Correct.
This injunction is more than 3 years old.
For the swimming injunction.
For the swimming injunction.
Yes.
It is more than 3 years old. I oversaw the affairs of swimming for almost 3 years. And swimming is, for me, has been the toughest challenge. Swimming is poisonous. Swimming is poisonous.
We talked about the waters being murky, but not poisonous.
No. The waters might be murky, but you can still swim. The vitriol within swimming is just at another level. Forget football.
Really?
The infighting in swimming, the vitriol, the attacks that I got against my person for trying to run
as the chairman.
As the chairman.
Okay.
I always say I have a thick skin, so I
these people, you are unable to get these people to come and sit together.
I tried. We did finally get to the point where we were actually going to hold elections.
Yes.
And then a group of people went to court.
To the mainstream court now.
To the mainstream court. The court issued an order stopping the elections and has never had the case. It's never determined it. So subsequently, as you know, FINA intervened. FINA put in place a normalization committee or whatever you want to call it. They've been running swimming. Then they tried to hold elections. But you see, the problem is that at the FINA level, you must also understand that the local federation is subject to our municipal law.
Correct.
You cannot ignore municipal law, whatever you think of it. However ridiculous you think that decision might be, you have to take it into consideration. So they tried to hold these elections, and of course these people who had gone to court and were sitting on their order just came back and said, we will cite you for contempt of court. And so of course they then had to pull back. I think actually maybe they did hold some elections. No, my recollection is that these people who offered themselves for election were all unopposed. But of course they would be unopposed because any opponents would not want
Well, because they didn't have
cited
opponents. Just other people did not offer themselves for election. But
they cannot be registered
Yes.
as officials of Swimming Federation
Is
in light of the injunction.
As an arbitrator, as the chairman of the Sports Disputes Tribunal, if you were asked what's the best, because we've talked to them before, even on this show, and
Yes.
to be honest, we don't understand left from right, back from front of swimming, where the vitriol is. What would be your decision if you were told to make a decision that will be binding today to help swimming?
I think first and foremost, I think that swimming needs to go the direction in which cricket went. If you have followed cricket, you may be aware that the cricket's following the appointment by Amina
Yes.
of
They had a normalization
committee.
And then
one of the
elections.
things they inserted into their constitution was that no one who had been an official of Cricket Kenya would make themselves available for election for a certain period. It's in the constitution. It has come before the tribunal to be agitated on that question. But it was debated by stakeholders and they passed it. And I think that swimming just needs a clean break.
But now who's going to bring this new constitution to be agitated? Because
now that's the problem.
It will be stopped by this other side.
And who will bring?
Who will we. To be fair to us, we had actually, in consultation with FINA, put in place a new constitution.
Okay.
So there is a new constitution for swimming.
Great.
Agreed to by FINA. It doesn't have that provision.
Okay.
But with the benefit of hindsight, I think that's what they require.
And it is
Swimming needs a benevolent dictator. That's what swimming needs.
Captain, we are running quickly out of time as this debate gets sweeter. So ask your question quickly and so we can move on.
Yeah, just one actually, and mine is almost like the last question, because we are talking about these other federations. Remember that Athletics Kenya, has not held any elections because of what is going on in court.
Absolutely.
And the question that I want to ask you, Chairman, is that what happens now? We have the Sports Act, which anyone, let's say, for example, the president, is supposed to be there for 2 terms or 4 years. But if you look at the duration, that some of them, because of these issues that we have in court, they overstayed. What happens in such kind of case?
Let me tell you. When I say the swimming injunction has been there for longer than 3 years,
Yes.
Athletics has been there for almost 5 years.
Yes, even longer.
Even longer, yeah.
Because it is in court.
Yeah.
The only reason athletics keeps running is because Kenya is a powerhouse in world athletics.
Okay.
The world needs Kenya.
So the world needs Kenya. So the point Wilfred is making is that the problem, therefore, is the leadership has continued in place for longer than the 2 terms allowed under the
Constitution.
Can athletes come to the SDT for that?
They can. But the problem is this.
Yes.
The problem is the matter is already before the Constitution.
The Constitution
has been there for 5 years plus.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
So
And
the
in sports,
tribunal
that is superior to SDT.
Do you ever have a good day in office?
I have very many good days.
Things that just come very quickly and you decide and everybody's happy, you have a cup of tea and you go home.
I had a very good day today. Yeah.
Really?
Some days, quick decisions, parties come, they have agreed on something, or we're able to work out a resolution quite quickly. We do actually work out some pretty good and interesting resolutions.
Okay. And how long are you still in that? Is it?
I've got maybe another year and a half.
A year and a half. Okay. And then what happens after that?
After that, whoever is interested will apply, and the Judicial Service Commission will interview them, and will appoint a new chair. as well as new members of the tribunal.
Will you be eligible as well?
No, I'm done with my
done.
2 years, and I think it's time to move on. I'm done with my 2 terms.
2 terms. No, you're not running away.
I think it's
just
time to
because
move
you're great. No, it's been one of those offices that everybody looked up upon, and also one of those offices that people are afraid to go to because of some of the decisions that were made as well. I think the football, the big powers, as AFC Leopards, Gor Mahia, have been before you as well over matters. I think once there was an issue of sponsorship, wasn't it?
Yes, very interesting one.
Probably with AFC Leopards. I don't know if we'll have time to discuss it, but I know you ultimately arbitrated it.
Yes, arbitrated it very successfully, actually.
And it ended
Very successfully.
Ended well. We made them 20 million shillings in 2 weeks.
Oh.
So I was very happy with that.
Oh, it's a good day in office.
Would they have made that much if
They
they
would
hadn't
never have
come
made
to
that
you?
much.
So it was a blessing in disguise that they came before the SDT.
Yes, it was.
Okay, John Moore, you are also a sportsman, so you'll help us go through a little bit of the diary that we have for the weekend, because we are running out of time now. We need to look at what we've got over the weekend. So we've got a couple of events that you need to put on your diary for the weekend. Ken, you have some of them?
Yep. Close home being Mr. Haga over here. We have the Prince Lu Rugby Nakuru.
Yes.
Did you
the
play
sevens?
that as well, or
used to play
you
sevens.
play
sevens.
Yeah,
I played 15s and 7s.
Yeah, this is going to be in Nakuru.
It's going to be Nakuru,
Yes.
and Pool B is proving to be a very interesting one, because there's Menengai Oilers, there's Nakuru RFC, that's a derby, then there's Nondes and Catholic University. Cabras, which is the leading in the sevens circuit, is in Pool A with Western Bulls, Homeboys, and Kisumu. The duel between Homeboys and Cabras, we are looking
Will unfold there
with
as
that.
well,
Yeah.
yes, okay.
Then we've got. Do we have Pool C?
Well, yeah, we can just move on with it.
Yeah,
with
Pool C. We have KCB.
Harlequins, Masinde Muliro, and Black Blood.
And Black Blood.
Okay.
Yeah,
Black Blood is from the
KU,
Kenyatta
from Kenyatta University.
Yes.
And finally in Pool D, we've got
it's amazing how these names still stick. From
Yeah,
those days,
yes,
the
yes.
basketball team of University of Nairobi
Yeah.
still called the terrorists.
So we have Mwamba,
Mwamba, Daystar,
Daystar now is
Zitek,
calling
and
themselves Falcons.
Okay.
Then we have Zitek Oaks and Strathmore Leos
Okay,
in Pool
great.
D. Yeah,
What
so
else
that's
we have over
Saturday
the
and
weekend
Sunday.
then?
We also have the Netball World Cup that is continuing.
What's going on? It's getting into the semi-final
yes,
and the final
and
stage.
in Eldoret, we have the Kenyan National Rally Championship.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we only
Now
have
there is
15
the
entries, but-
Switzerland playing Spain. That's in
Yes,
Saturday the
the
5th.
FIFA,
That's in the
yeah.
FIFA Women's World Cup, plus Japan
And
playing
Japan
Norway
playing Norway.
as well. And
Yes.
these are very tough matches. The knockout stage now, so
Yeah,
you
and then
lose
the round
you
of
go home.
16 now.
And on Sunday, we have Netherlands versus South Africa.
Who's that? Who has impressed you?
Japan.
Japan. Why?
Oh, pretty sleek.
Absolutely.
Yes,
one thing that has been said is
quick like the
some
men.
teams that are making their debut are playing better than teams that have been there before. And some of the teams that have been there before, like Germany, have already been knocked out.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Netherlands
Brazil.
and South Africa on Sunday, Sweden and the USA.
And USA as
Yes.
well. And then on Monday, we have England versus Nigeria, Australia
That's a must
versus
watch.
Denmark.
Yeah.
That's a must watch. And
Now
then
remember,
on
when you
Tuesday,
say Monday, you must tell us whether it's the Australian Monday or the Kenyan Monday.
that should be
So the
Australian.
Australian Monday is Kenyan Tuesday.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we should be-
Today
Yeah, we should be
is
sure about
Kenyan
that.
Thursday. It's Australian Friday. already.
Friday,
So
yeah.
we need to take
Yeah.
that correctly as well. Jamaica was waiting to see who they're going to be playing.
Colombia.
France. Now they're going to play
after the match of Morocco, Colombia.
Okay.
So Jamaica will play Colombia,
and
and
France-
France will play Morocco.
Well, that's sorted
That's,
out then. Well
those-
done.
yeah,
Okay, let's move on to the next one. Do you have another one?
That'll be a good one. That's that one. Yes.
That should have been the
Of
last
course,
one.
then the Commonwealth Youth Games are
Youth games that
ongoing
are going
in
on
Trinidad and Tobago.
Trinidad and Tobago.
And
I've
the
always
national
wondered, Ken,
schools.
Trinidad and Tobago will also present a team, won't they?
Yes, they would.
A person from Kenya who's there is a Kenyan. What about a person from Trinidad and Tobago? Who are they? Who do they call them?
So the tournament has been called Trinibago.
No, no, no,
The
no,
tournament
no,
is
no,
Trinibago.
no, 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 no.
So
I get what you're asking.
Trinibago. So that will be a Trinibagonian.
So there's a
That's a hard
possibility of
one.
meeting a Trinibagian or
Yeah,
Tobagian.
Trinidad, yeah.
That's the one. That's the one.
All right. Okay. So this interesting. There's going to be a women's sevens team as well. What do you think about the women's team, rugby teams?
The youth.
Yeah,
youth
yeah.
team.
The women's sport is really coming up. I think
gonna overtake the men's sport at some point,
it's very interesting to watch, and they're
getting a lot
getting
of
really
support as well.
proficient. Yeah. Absolutely.
Even the women's soccer in Kenya is getting a lot of support. Okay.
is.
I did tell you, Bernard, John had a very bad stomachache after watching Kenya get thrashed by Zimbabwe.
Yes, actually, I did.
Were you at the stadium?
Yes, I was.
I was there as
I
well.
was. It was just there was not enough space under my seat to hide.
To hide.
Even though we tried to sing and try to encourage Chipukizi,
Yeah, I heard you talk about schools combined. I really think we should go back to that model.
It's a good idea, isn't it?
It is a good idea, yeah.
That's what they're adopting again, and so together with county rugby and the schools combined tournament.
I think so.
Is a talent identification program.
I think we have to start back to. I mean, I started with playing in baby courts rugby, and then junior courts, and then middle courts, and then I jumped senior courts and went straight into the first team. But there was a pathway, you know, baby courts, junior courts, middle courts, senior courts, second 15, first 15. Not just in school. There's a progression.
Okay.
And that teaches you basic handling skills, tackling, kicking, space, and so on. I mean,
John,
all those basic
we're running out of
skills,
time, but I need to ask you this as well. I mean, sport is evolving.
Yes.
All sports, basketball, football, they're all evolving. Are we playing that evolving rugby, or are we still playing the traditional rugby?
I don't even know if it's traditional.
Yeah, we need to change it, don't we? Yeah, it's got to change.
It's unrecognizable. I think we should play to our strengths.
Okay.
As Kenya, I really think we should play to our strengths. Engage the other side in the park and then whip the ball out. That's where Kenya made its name. Correct. That's how we got into the World Sevens. Yeah.
Okay, we've run out of time, gentlemen. I'm sorry, but I got so many tweets coming in, and most of them are congratulating you for the work you have done. Some are complaining you've really hurt them with some of the decisions, but they're wishing you well as well.
I'm sorry.
He says he's sorry if he hurt you, but you can tell them just a quick one. He hurt you, but he's sorry because he's got to make a decision at the end of the day. But John, thank you very much for having turned up to talk to us. We really appreciate it. We don't take it for granted. Now we understand the scope. Now we understand why some of the decisions are difficult. Some people will be happy, some people will not be happy, but we must encourage you to continue at least giving direction to sport whenever there are these disputes. You are the equivalent of the Court of Arbitration for sport, aren't you?
Absolutely.
The local one.
That's where I want to go next. That's where I want to finish my time.
John Moore Haga, the chairman of the Sports Dispute Tribunal, talking to us on Scoreboard. I see your questions. I see your comments as well. They're good comments. They're congratulating you mostly for what you have done. But we must end there again. It flies very quickly the time when you're in good company. We hope that we'll have John again for a bigger chat the next time. But for now, we have to say goodbye and thank you for watching and see you next week.